A sudden car accident changed my life forever. My mother sacrificed herself to save me and left this world, while my wife Sophia's arch-nemesis, David, and I both lost our sight in the crash. Lying in the hospital bed, I eagerly awaited the corneal transplant from my mother, hoping to see again. However, to my utter disbelief, Sophia signed the waiver herself, donating my mother's corneas to David. She held my hand tightly, and at that moment, a whirlwind of emotions surged through me. I just thought, I don't want to owe David a favor, from now on, I'll be your eyes. The story is about to unfold. If you like it, remember to subscribe. By a stroke of luck, fate took a turn, and I regained my sight. Overjoyed, I wanted to share the good news with my wife, only to walk into our bedroom and witness a heart-shattering scene. Sophia and David were locked in a passionate embrace. It turned out that the so-called arch-nemesis was actually an old flame. Watching their intimate figures, I quietly slipped out of the bedroom and into the living room, staring blankly at a photo of Sophia and David embracing. The scene from a year ago replayed in my mind like a movie. That day, when Sophia fell ill, I rushed to see her with my mother, only to collide with David's car. My mother died on the spot, and both David and I were blinded. Everyone thought my mother's corneas would be donated to me, but while I was unconscious, Sophia signed the waiver on my behalf, giving the corneas to David. I couldn't help but wonder if David felt any guilt while he was having an affair with Sophia through my mother's eyes. The sounds from the bedroom gradually faded, replaced by their conversation. "Sophia, are you still not done with that blind guy?" David's disdainful voice came through. "David, just wait a little longer. You know he's not in a good place right now," Sophia replied lazily, her voice stabbing my heart like needles. I remembered when I woke up in the darkness, Sophia held my hand and said with a pained expression, "I took the liberty of giving your mom's corneas to David. You know we don't get along, and I didn't want to owe him anything." At that time, although I felt a bit displeased, I believed that anything that made Sophia happy was my duty. I've always lived by that creed, but now reality has slapped me hard in the face. The sounds in the room stopped, and Sophia emerged in her nightgown. I looked at the woman I loved so dearly, almost greedily. For a year in the darkness, my only wish was to see her face again. God granted me my sight back, but it seemed to push me into an even deeper abyss. "James, what are you doing here?" Sophia was startled, her voice filled with panic. She instinctively glanced toward the room, then visibly relaxed when she remembered I couldn't see. "Why didn't you let me know you were coming back? I would have picked you up." At that moment, David, shirtless, strolled out and planted a lingering kiss on Sophia right in front of me. The nauseating smacking sounds echoed in my ears. "Sophia, what was that noise?" I asked, feigning calm. Sophia, blushing and flustered, pushed David away and panted, "It's nothing, James. Don't cook tonight. Let's go out to eat, shall we?" I didn't respond, just quietly staring at her. After David left, I looked at Sophia with a firm and piercing gaze, as if trying to see through her. "Sophia, let's have a serious talk," I said. She, however, was preoccupied with covering up the hickey on her neck and paid no attention to me. A wave of sorrow washed over me, and I sneered, "Stop covering it, Sophia. I can see now." She turned to me in a panic, a flicker of unease crossing her face before she quickly composed herself. "What are you saying? James, you can see? That's wonderful news. We must celebrate." I stared intently at her beautiful face that once made my heart race, feeling such pain that I could hardly breathe. "Wonderful? For you, maybe. Now you can cheat with a clear conscience, right?" I recounted every word she and David had whispered, watching her face drain of color. But instead of feeling any satisfaction, I was filled with endless pain. "It's not like that, James. How could you think that of me? I'm the happiest person if you can see again," she said, quickly stepping forward to hug me. But she stopped in her tracks when she saw the coldness in my eyes. "Please let me explain. It's not what you think between David and me." I pointed to the red marks on her body and said coldly, "Is this a misunderstanding too?" She shook her head uneasily, and I stormed out, leaving her standing there, staring at my retreating figure. Standing on the street, surrounded by the hustle and bustle of traffic, I realized I had nowhere to go. My mother was the only family I had in this world. She raised me through hardships, and I had sworn to give her a good life. Just when that dream seemed within reach, she was gone forever. David, speeding on a 50-mile-per-hour street, crashed into my car. He was not only a victim of the accident but also the culprit. I could never accept that Sophia was with the very person who indirectly killed my mother. I found a cafe by the roadside and turned off the accessibility settings on my phone. Recalling the days of blindness, though dark and inconvenient, I had struggled to adapt for Sophia's sake. I learned to cook by feel and take care of her daily needs, not wanting to be a burden. After much thought, I dialed that long-forgotten number. "Mark, I can see again. Can you take me in for a while?" Mark was my best friend, who treated my mother like his own. After my mother's death, he helped me with the funeral, staying up for 3 days and nights. He was also the one who had once grabbed Sophia by the collar, wanting to tear her and David apart. Unfortunately, the moment I forgave Sophia, our brotherhood seemed to come to an end. Without asking why, he simply asked for my address and hung up. As dusk fell and the streetlights slowly lit up, I greedily took in the long-missed scenery, finding some solace in my heart. Once, I had trusted Sophia implicitly, just as I knew Mark would come for me. However, the car that pulled up at the entrance made me realize that while a woman might betray my trust, a brother never would. Before I got into the car, Sophia rushed over and blocked my path. "James, why do you always hang out with such shady people?" She remembered the slap from Mark, which had left her face swollen for 3 days. Ignoring her, I bowed my head to get into the car. She grabbed my hand. "Come back with me. Can't we talk this through at home? I've been taking care of you all this year, haven't I? Is this really worth running away over?" People around us cast strange glances, as if condemning me for being ungrateful. Mark looked at me with concern, and I shook my head to signal that I was fine, but my eyes were on David, who was approaching from a distance. "Sophia, you call taking care of me while cheating with the man who killed my mother good care?" My voice was soft but clear enough for her to hear. "James, I've told you a million times, David was in a hurry to see me, that's why the accident happened. Can't you let it go?" David stood behind her, his arm around her waist, and asked with feigned concern, "Sophia, are you okay?" The two of them looked like a perfect couple, but to me, they were painfully blinding. David frowned at me. "James, how long do you plan to make a fuss? If I was wrong, the law will decide. The fact that I'm standing here now means it was just an accident." "Accident? Accident?" My heart was filled with rage. I wish I had been the one who died back then. Onlookers raised their phones to record, and I cast a cold glance at David. Yeah, only the beneficiaries have the nerve to stand there and spout nonsense. I didn't want to argue in front of everyone anymore and turned to get into the car with Mark. Through the rearview mirror, I saw David pull Sophia into a hug, as if to console her. It seemed time really could change everything. My story with Sophia began when we first entered society. Back then, I was poor and could only afford the bus to work. Once, I was so embarrassed that I couldn't even scrape together the fare, but Sophia helped me out. It was only later that I learned she came from a wealthy family and took the bus just to experience life. Naturally, she didn't care about the few dollars I tried to give her back. She said she needed a lunch buddy, and I took her to all the best local eateries. Over time, we fell in love, sealing our future together over countless meals. Her parents were kind to me and even invited my mother to live with us. I naively thought that finally, I could give my mother a good life, so I worked even harder to build a bright future for Sophia. But everything was shattered in that car accident. Sophia's calls kept coming, one after another, until I couldn't bear it anymore and blocked her number. Mark, watching my actions, half joked, "So, you got cheated on?" I nodded bitterly. "No way, with that jerk?" He asked in disbelief, and I nodded again. The car suddenly screeched to a halt, and my head hit the dashboard. "James, are you crazy? Just let these two go?" Mark turned the steering wheel. "Today, bro, we gotta get you some justice." We pulled up to my apartment building and saw Sophia and David kissing under the streetlight. Mark first recorded the embarrassing scene with his phone, then flung open the door and punched David, unleashing a year's worth of pent-up anger on him. Sophia screamed and tried to pull Mark off, but when she saw me, she quickly shifted her focus. "James, why did you bring this lunatic here? This is between us. Don't drag other people into it. Didn't I take good care of you when you were blind? Make him stop." I looked at the chaotic scene and shook my head. "Sophia, Mark is avenging my mom. This has nothing to do with you." My cold gaze silenced Sophia instantly. After a while, watching the two men fight, she said calmly, "James, I do owe you an apology in this matter, but it has nothing to do with David. If you want revenge, take it out on me, not him." I looked at her righteous facade and clenched my jaw in anger. "Sophia, so you finally admit it. David was rushing to see you, wasn't he? You two were already together back then." Sophia's face turned pale, and she didn't respond for a long time. I called out to Mark to stop, but David, in a fit of madness, threw a punch at me. Upon seeing my figure, he lunged at me. At the last moment, Sophia blocked his hand. "David, don't do this. All of this is my fault to James." David's fist smashed into the car window, and he glared at me with a grotesque expression. "James, don't push your luck. You've held Sophia back for years. If you're a man, set her free. I stared into David's eyes, a pair of narrow, phoenix-like eyes now filled with hostility. I suddenly remembered they were my mother's eyes. I grinned. Set her free? Sure, if you can give me my mom's eyes back. James, you're crazy. Sophia screamed, pushing me to the ground. The doctor said there was a chance for your eyes to recover, but David couldn't wait any longer. I had no choice but to sign the waiver. Can't you stop making a fuss? I watched as she protectively shielded David like a mother hen, feeling a bitter lump in my throat. I knew she had fallen for someone else, but why did it still hurt so much? At that moment, Sophia saw the police arriving and clung to them like a lifeline. Officer, I called the police. He's the one who instructed someone to intentionally hurt my boyfriend. She still wore our wedding ring but pointed at me without hesitation. The police took us back to the station for questioning. I bitterly told the officer, my wife cheated on me, and my friend just couldn't stand it and helped me vent. Officer, do you know who my wife cheated with? The very person who killed my mom. I just couldn't swallow my pride. I took out our marriage certificate, and the case of intentional harm eventually turned into a domestic dispute. Before leaving the station, the officer patted my shoulder sympathetically, saying it was their duty. I nodded, not even glancing at Sophia, and helped Mark into the car. The car was silent for a long time until I finally spoke. Thanks. Mark snorted coldly. I was avenging my godmother. If she knew her corneas ended up in that scumbag, she'd never rest in peace. Ignoring his wounds, he drove me to the cemetery. I buried my godmother here. It's about time you paid her a visit. Mark was right. During my blindness, I had been too afraid to come here. Every time I thought of her, I was reminded of the gruesome accident. I stumbled to my mother's grave, which looked well maintained. I knelt down in silence and slowly bowed 3 times, to mourn my mother, to admit I had loved the wrong person, and to promise her that I would live a good life from now on. As I left the cemetery, I sent a text to Sophia, let's get a divorce. During my stay at Mark's house, I reflected on the year I spent blind. I had quit my job and stayed cooped up at home, determined to be Sophia's support system, as if that would prove I wasn't disabled. The dark world terrified and repelled me. I isolated myself, not wanting to interact with many people. Back then, Sophia was my entire world. James, you're trending online, Mark said, holding his phone. Someone had compiled the conflict at the cafe entrance and the fight downstairs into a single video, making me out to be the villain who broke up a couple. For a while, the internet was abuzz with discussions. In this strange era, my blindness was seen as a burden that held Sophia back, even though we were legally married. In the eyes of those condemning netizens, love seemed to matter more than the law. I thought for a moment, then called Sophia. There was no answer. I tried David's number instead, and I heard heavy breathing on the other end. Who is this? David, tell Sophia to meet me at the Civil Affairs office tomorrow. I hung up resolutely, and the next second, Sophia's call came through. The same heavy breathing made my heart sink. James, you wanted me? I replied calmly, I've already told David. Ask him for the details. Mark took me out for a heavy drinking session, and we cleared up the misunderstandings of the past years, crying and embracing each other. In my brother's arms, I let out all the grievances I had bottled up over the past few days. I truly couldn't understand why Sophia had done all this. She had told me countless times that David was her arch-nemesis and that they were like oil and water. Yet, I had repeatedly comforted and encouraged her whenever she seemed to be losing to him, only to push my own wife into his arms in the end. When I woke up, the sky was already bright. Looking at the rising sun in the distance, I made up my mind that my new life would start today. The next time I saw Sophia, she immediately noticed my dark circles. James, are you okay? What happened to your eyes? You just got better, you have to take care of them. I didn't say anything, just staring at the faint red marks on her neck. Sophia, can you not be in such a hurry? It's fine if you want to do whatever after we divorce, but right now, you're cheating while we're still married, you know that, right? Sophia's face turned red, and she quickly pulled up her collar to cover the marks. Aren't you the one who wanted a divorce? Let's hurry up and go inside. Seeing her eager expression, I suddenly changed my mind. I don't want a divorce anymore. You don't? Why not? Sophia's reaction surprised me. She clutched the marriage certificate tightly. James, what kind of game are you playing? Can't you stop treating marriage like a joke? I've been putting up with you for so long. If you keep making a fuss like this, I'm really tired. Looking at her angry expression, I felt a pang of sorrow. Sophia, are you really that eager to be with David? Don't you remember the words you spoke in front of my mom's body? You said you'd be my eyes, my support, and take care of me for the rest of your life on behalf of my mom, but it's only been a year. A flicker of guilt crossed Sophia's face. James, I know you're holding a grudge against me for making you give up your mom's corneas, but you've already regained your sight, haven't you? Do you really have to be so petty about this? You were the one who said divorce, and now you're the one who doesn't want it. Have you even considered my feelings? Sophia! I roared in anger. When you were cheating, did you even think about how my mom would feel? I don't expect you to love me that much, but have you forgotten all the kindness my mom showed you? She knew your family was wealthy, and every time she came over, she brought some exotic things. When you coughed, she would rush back to the countryside to pick the ripest snow pears and make pear water for you. You liked vegetables, so she planted a whole patch just for you. Even on the day of the accident, it was because she heard you were sick and urged me to go see you. James, I know you hold a grudge, but is that my fault? Did I ask your mom to come see me when I was sick? Don't you think you should also look at your own actions? Sophia's words completely enraged me, and with a slap, I struck her face. James, take it out on me. David immediately stepped forward to protect Sophia. David, it's not your business. This is something I owe James. Sophia stopped David, covering her face and looking at me. If you want to torment me, fine, I'll accept it, but this has nothing to do with David. Seeing her protect David like that, I suddenly felt incredibly exhausted. What was the point of all these years of persistence? Was it for love? Yet, it ended in a broken home and the loss of a loved one. You want a divorce? Fine, but only if David publicly admits online that he's the third wheel who intruded on someone else's relationship. James, are you crazy? Sophia shouted in disbelief. I called Mark, who was nearby looking for a parking spot. He did a perfect drift, his movements smooth and stylish, and I swiftly got into the car, leaving Sophia and David behind, choking on our dust. Divorced? No. Are you trying to drive me crazy? Faced with Mark's exasperation, I handed him a cigarette to calm him down. Don't worry, Sophia will be begging for the divorce in a few days. An eye for an eye, that's how it works. I rolled down the window, and my hearty laughter echoed out. Sophia, just how solid is your relationship with David? I'll be watching. Half a month passed, and David didn't contact me or clarify anything online. Sophia, on the other hand, called me every day, trying to get me to drop the demand for David's apology. My response was always the same: if he won't clarify, then let David kneel down and apologize to me. Sophia would get furious and hang up the phone. I had an appointment at the hospital for a checkup, and my sudden recovery of sight was something even the doctors marveled at. The doctor who examined me exclaimed that it was nothing short of a miracle. Only I knew the bitterness inside. If the price of regaining my sight was losing my stable life and seeing the ugly truth about my loved one, I wasn't sure if I would have wanted to see again in the first place. At the hospital entrance, I saw Sophia standing there in a white dress. She was as beautiful and charming as I remembered. Once, people would whisper behind my back, saying we were mismatched, that I was a poor boy who didn't deserve her. Back then, I was full of ambition, thinking that as long as Sophia loved me, all difficulties were just stepping stones on our path to happiness. But reality slapped me hard, and now I'm past the age where I can fight back without restraint. James, are you okay? I heard you were in the hospital, so I rushed over. Her voice came through. I raised an eyebrow, looking at her anxious expression, unsure of what she was really after. How did you know I was here? She froze for a moment, her eyes darting around. When you were blind, I installed a tracker on your phone. I swear, I did it just to keep you safe. Sophia's words jogged my memory. The first time I went out alone, I made a fool of myself and ended up being brought back by the police. That was when Sophia installed the tracking app on my phone. But after her betrayal, it was hard not to be suspicious. Let's get down to business. David has agreed to apologize to me. The name David now felt like Pandora's box. Whenever it was mentioned, the last bit of calm between us vanished. But I couldn't avoid it. Since the moment of her betrayal, David had become an insurmountable chasm between us. James, do you really have to make such a fuss? Sophia's eyes were tearful, and she looked at me with a pleading expression. I was the one who signed the waiver. If you have any grievances, take it out on me, not on others, okay? Seeing her apologize on behalf of David, my anger flared up. I curled my lips into a cold smile. You said it, Sophia. What if I ask you to kneel here and apologize to my mom? Sophia's eyes were filled with disbelief. She probably couldn't understand how I, who was once so understanding, had become so aggressive. Why? Why were Sophia's parents living comfortably while my mom lay in a remote suburban cemetery? Why did her lover, who saw the light again through my mom's corneas, enjoy the sunshine while I suffered in darkness for so long? I wanted answers to these questions. But in the end, we parted ways unhappily. How could she, a proud young lady who had never experienced real pain, understand my feelings? Later, I brought some fruit to Sophia's house. The moment I received a call from Sophia's father, I knew I couldn't avoid some things anymore. These two elderly people had once treated me like their own son. After regaining my sight, I should have visited them out of respect and gratitude. James has arrived. Please have a seat, my mother-in-law welcomed me in. It was then that I saw David sitting upright on the sofa. What's the meaning of this, Mom and Dad? I asked, my heart filled with bitterness. Before I entered, I had thought that even if I divorced Sophia in the future, I would still treat her parents like my own. But now it seemed they didn't need me as a son at all. James, please sit down first, my father-in-law said, sitting at the other end of the sofa, sipping his tea and speaking calmly. As soon as I sat down, he continued, James, I've heard about the conflicts between you. Sophia was indeed in the wrong, but you must also understand our feelings as parents. We know about her and David, and I even encouraged her to do this. If anyone is to blame, it's me, this old man. His words hit me like a thunderbolt. Before he could finish, I angrily threw down my teacup, interrupting his well-rehearsed speech. Enough! I shouted. Mom and Dad, I had made up my mind before coming in. As long as you still considered me your son, I would treat you like my own parents and take care of you in your old age. I never expected to be wrong about you again. Ask yourselves honestly, who caused all of this? Was Sophia's behavior back then really above reproach? I went blind, and you looked down on me. I can understand that. If Sophia had just told me, I would never have held her back. But what did she do? She cheated on me and treated me like a fool. Do I deserve this? David still had marks on his face from the last time Mark punched him. He seemed surprised that I would expose everything in front of the elderly and became anxious. James, what are you doing? No matter what, these are your elders. Is this all the upbringing you have? I turned and glared at this sanctimonious hypocrite. At least my mom never taught me to destroy other people's families. After calming down a bit, I looked at Sophia's parents again. Fine, I'll let them be together, but David has to kowtow and apologize in front of my mom's grave. Nothing else is negotiable. I walked out of Sophia's house in a daze, feeling more suffocated than ever. It seemed there was no place for me in this world. I wandered silently down the street, like a homeless dog with nowhere to go. In the distance, thunder rumbled, and I turned my steps toward the cemetery. At that moment, I desperately wanted to see my mom again. In front of her tombstone, I felt like a child who had finally found home, unloading all the burdens in my heart. Leaning against my mom's grave, I eventually passed out. When I opened my eyes again, I was in the hospital. Mark was dozing off by my bedside. Upon seeing me awake, he gave me a reproachful look before calling the doctor for a checkup. James, what am I supposed to say to you? You haven't even made those scumbags pay yet, and you collapse first. If I hadn't found you at the cemetery, who knows what would have happened? I smiled at his nagging, not knowing what to say. Mark, thank you. Hearing my sentimental words, he fell silent first. I promised my godmother I'd take care of you. Buck up. I nodded with a smile, staring blankly at the void in front of me. Yeah, why should I punish myself for other people's mistakes? After being with Sophia for so many years, I have a clear conscience. It's she who should feel guilty. After the doctor reviewed my medical records and scolded me, I promised to take better care of myself and was finally allowed to leave the hospital. As soon as I got home, I received a call from David, who agreed to apologize. I rushed to the cemetery without delay. In front of my mom's tombstone, David and Sophia stood there in matching outfits, with Sophia holding a bouquet of chrysanthemums. Upon seeing me rushing over, she didn't say anything but placed the flowers in front of my mom's grave and handed me a handkerchief. Wipe yourself off. Your health can't afford any more strain. I slapped her hand away. I don't need your fake sympathy. Just apologize and get out of here. Don't desecrate my mom's resting place. Although I didn't know why David had a change of heart, as long as he admitted his mistake, my mom could rest in peace. He clenched his jaw, glanced at me, and then knelt down straight. After kowtowing once, he tried to get up, but I quickly pressed his head down. Don't rush. There are two more. To my surprise, David didn't show any resentment. He looked up at me, and I couldn't read the emotion in his eyes. Under my insistence, he kowtowed twice more, so hard that by the time he lifted his head, his forehead was covered in blood. James, I've done what you asked. I hope you'll keep your promise, he said. I nodded expressionlessly, watching Sophia's anxious face and recalling how she had run to David without hesitation at the time of the accident. Although she had explained it was an emergency back then, I didn't think much of it. But now, what else didn't I understand? Everything had been set in motion long ago. As I walked out of the civil affairs office with Sophia, I felt nothing. All those emotions of love seemed irrelevant to me now. I coldly watched as Sophia's parents held flowers, welcoming what they called Sophia's new beginning. The sight of her family embracing each other used to fill me with longing, but now it just felt blinding. James, thank you, Sophia's mother called out to me, sincerely expressing her gratitude. If you ever want to, my husband and I will always welcome you. We'll also visit your mother's grave during the holidays. I didn't respond, just turned and left that suffocating place. No need. I'm afraid my mom would be angry if she saw you all. Mark was waiting for me in the car nearby. Seeing the flowers in Sophia's hand, he slapped his forehead in regret. I should have brought you a bouquet too. Can't lose face. Hearing his joke, I gave the most sincere smile I had in days. Get lost. Mark was scrolling through his phone while opening the car door for me. Suddenly, his smile faded, and he looked at me seriously. James, something's happened. We spent a long time staring at the phone, trying to find the live streaming link. Why is this self-media so complicated? Mark scratched his head and looked at me. I quickly waved my hands. I just got my sight back and have been out of touch with society for a year. I don't understand any of this. Someone had uploaded the video of David kowtowing in front of my mom's grave to the internet. The contrast between my sternness and his was stark. Coupled with the previous rumors, the internet was abuzz with discussions about me. Some radical netizens dug up my resume, saying I was a toad trying to eat a swan, and worse still, some even found my mom's grave and threw rotten eggs and spoiled vegetables at it. Even Mark was labeled as my hired thug, constantly harassed by bored people. When I received Sophia's call, I was wiping my mom's tombstone with a cloth, looking at the mixture of egg yolk and spoiled vegetables, and feeling incredibly absurd. James, are you okay? I didn't do this. Do you believe me? Of course, I knew she didn't do it, but could David's actions really be separated from her? So, you're calling to ask me to forgive David? Before this, I had someone release a clarification video. I'm sure the truth is now out, and the internet is in an uproar. James was silent for a while, then replied with a hint of guilt, this has already caused him a lot of trouble, so I'd like to ask you to take down those videos. Seemingly afraid I would be upset, he raised his voice, of course, I'll also have him remove the false videos he posted. I never expected him to do such a thing. I apologize on his behalf. I didn't respond, just uploaded the entire audio clip to the internet. Soon, the public opinion shifted, and confused netizens turned their attention to Sophia and David. I ignored the online chaos and focused on finding a job to support myself after the divorce. Sophia felt guilty and gave me a substantial amount of assets, but I didn't want to live off them. I desperately needed a job to distract myself. I sent out many resumes and faced many rejections, but eventually, a company with good humanistic care took me in. It wasn't until 3 months into my job that I found out I was hired because Sophia had spoken to the company's CEO. To get me, a person with no connections, hired, she even gave up part of her profit. When I learned the truth, I wanted to call Sophia to ask her why, but my hand hovered over the dialing keys without pressing them. What would I ask? Would I ask her why she felt sorry for me? After much thought, I turned off my phone and began to work diligently. Since I got in through connections, I needed to prove my worth to the boss even more. Unexpectedly, just a few days later, Sophia called me. It was late at night, and I had just finished working overtime, feeling exhausted. I answered the phone without even checking the caller ID. Who is it? Calling in the middle of the night like a horror movie. I grumbled, about to hang up, when I heard Sophia's sobs, James, it's me. Hearing her familiar voice, I felt a mix of emotions. I'd rather it was a horror movie. What do you want at this hour? Since starting my job, I hadn't seen them for a while and hadn't heard any news about Sophia and David getting married. An insider had told me they were in a Cold War recently, for reasons unknown. I calculated the date when Sophia's father was retiring and had a rough idea. David was never a good guy. Did he truly love Sophia? I wasn't sure, but I knew he enjoyed the taste of power. When he and Sophia were at odds, she was still a rich second generation experiencing life incognito. In his eyes, Sophia was there to snatch his resources, so he wouldn't go easy on her. When did David find out about Sophia's true identity? Maybe it was at our wedding when he realized Sophia's father was a prominent figure, or perhaps he noticed the high value of her clothes and lifestyle, which couldn't be supported by their salaries. But what did all this have to do with me? "James, I miss you," she said. "Stop right there." The sweet nothings of the past now felt like poison, making me feel sick just hearing them. "If you think you can manipulate me with emotions, I'll quit this job right away. That's not what I mean. I just miss the days we used to have, carefree and without worries. Now we have everything, but we're not happy at all." For Sophia's melodramatic words, I had only one response: bored. While on the phone, I walked downstairs and saw that familiar figure at the entrance, Sophia. She hung up the phone and lunged at me, her black coat swirling in the air, replaying in slow motion in my eyes. I reached out to stop her, took a step back, and refused. "James, I really miss you," she said. "I don't miss you," I replied, folding my arms and looking her up and down. After not seeing her for a while, Sophia had become haggard. How ironic. When she used to take care of me, she complained of being tired but still looked rosy. Now, just a few days of a cold war with David had worn her out. Love or no love, it was clear as day. "James, you're not like this," Sophia said, tears in her eyes, seemingly never expecting me to reject her. Of course, she had always been a privileged girl, able to get whatever she wanted, while I was just an ordinary person. Ordinary people have feelings too, and those past experiences were deeply branded in my heart, unforgettable. "Miss Sophia, if you have emotional issues, you should discuss them with your boyfriend." "I may be poor, but I don't have the hobby of breaking up couples," I said. I clearly saw the light in Sophia's eyes go out. She probably wouldn't come to me again after this. Sophia was a smart woman, she could understand the sarcasm in my words. With her pride, she wouldn't allow herself to make such a humble move again. Ladies and ordinary people are, after all, different. Life gradually returned to normal, and I was still the diligent little clerk. Thanks to my unremitting efforts, my boss finally saw my value. After a heartfelt conversation, I was promoted. Sophia never contacted me again, but I knew her relationship with David was not smooth. Unfortunately, Mark was like a loudspeaker, always relaying her stories to me. Later, I heard that something happened in Sophia's family. It turned out that although Sophia's parents agreed to her marriage with David, they required him to sign a prenuptial agreement, clearly stipulating that he could not obtain a penny of the family's wealth, not even the inheritance that Sophia would receive in the future. David had approached Sophia for her family's fortune, and this agreement completely shattered his plans. So, he pretended to agree to sign the agreement but hired someone to stage a fake car accident on the way to the lawyer's office, killing her parents. However, the net of justice is vast but not without holes. The police discovered evidence of David's hired murder during the investigation and eventually arrested him, sentencing him to life imprisonment. Upon learning the truth, Sophia was severely shocked and even miscarried. She lost her parents and her child, and she fell into deep despair. Later, Sophia came to find me. Her face was pale, and her eyes were hollow, devoid of her former arrogance and luster. Sophia's voice trembled as she said to me, "James, I deeply regret it. Only now do I see David for who he truly is and realize how wrong I was. I hurt the person who truly loved me, I hurt you. Please forgive me and give me another chance, will you?" I looked at her, feeling no ripple in my heart. The once intense love and pain had now turned into calmness. I shook my head and said indifferently, "Sophia, some mistakes cannot be undone. What's between us has long ended." She was in tears, wanting to say more, but I had already turned and walked away. Mark stood not far away, watching me approach, and patted my shoulder without saying a word. In my leisure time, I often gaze at the brightest star in the night sky, inevitably feeling a pang of longing. I whisper softly, "Mom, can you see? I'm doing well now, with Mark by my side. You can rest easy." After expressing my longing, I look at Mark, who is still grinning foolishly, and sigh, "The silly guy, when will he find a reliable person to take him away?"